The holographic display flickered to life in the center of the training room, showing a massive space station under attack. Red warning lights bathed the walls as simulated explosions echoed through the speakers. Around the circular room, 36 cadets from 12 different species stood at attention, their eyes fixed on the tactical scenario unfolding before them. Marcus Chen shifted his weight from one foot to the other. The human cadet felt sweat building under his standard-issue uniform. 3 months at the Galactic Academy of Strategic Sciences, and he still felt out of place among his alien classmates. To his left stood a Xanthari with 4 arms and skin like polished stone. To his right, a floating Etherian pulsed with soft blue light. Both had been studying advanced warfare for decades before humans even knew other species existed. "Today we practice peacekeeping protocols," Commander Thexui announced. The instructor's voice came through a translation device strapped to his throat. His species looked like walking trees with bark-like skin and branches instead of hair. "Your mission is to secure the station and protect civilian populations. You have 2 hours." The cadets began forming teams. Marcus watched as natural alliances emerged. The warrior species gravitated toward each other. The telepathic races formed their own group without speaking a word. The ancient civilizations clustered together, sharing knowing looks about protocols Marcus had never heard of. "Chen." The voice boomed across the room. Marcus turned to see Veltar approaching. The reptilian prince stood 7 feet tall, his scaled hide gleaming under the training room lights. Golden markings ran along his arms and neck, marking him as royalty among the hegemony, his yellow eyes fixed on Marcus with obvious contempt. "Your kind will slow down any team," Veltar said. His English was perfect, but he spoke each word like it tasted bad. "Perhaps you should observe from the side. Learn how real warriors handle complex situations." Several alien cadets turned to watch. Marcus felt their eyes on him, waiting to see how he would respond. In 3 months, he had heard variations of this speech dozens of times. Humans were too young, too primitive, too weak. They had barely left their home planet when other species had been exploring the galaxy for thousands of years. "I can handle myself," Marcus replied. He kept his voice steady, though his hands clenched into fists. Veltar's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Can you? Your species has been part of the coalition for 5 years. My people have been warriors for 5,000. He gestured to the other cadets. "Everyone here has natural advantages you lack. Enhanced strength, telepathy, energy manipulation, advanced technology. What do humans bring to this academy besides enthusiasm?" Across the room, Zara Okonkwo watched the confrontation unfold. The other human cadet in their class had been quiet during training, but Marcus had noticed her studying everything and everyone with intense focus. She had mentioned being a medic before joining the academy, but something about the way she moved suggested more training than that. "Humans adapt," Marcus said. "We learn fast. We don't give up." "Pretty words," Veltar replied. "But this academy trains military leaders. When plasma fire fills the space around your ship, will your enthusiasm protect your crew? When enemy forces board your vessel, will your learning curve keep your people alive?" The reptilian prince took a step closer. Marcus had to crane his neck to meet his eyes. "Your species was given academy positions as a political gesture. The coalition wants to keep Earth happy, but everyone here knows humans don't belong among real warriors." The training room fell silent. Even Commander Thexui stopped his preparations to watch. Marcus felt heat rising in his chest. 3 months of casual insults and dismissive comments boiled over. He thought of every human who had died earning humanity's place in the coalition. He thought of the wars fought to prove his species deserved respect. "You want to test human capability?" Marcus asked. "Let's test it." Veltar's golden markings seemed to pulse brighter. "An interesting proposal." "Very well." He reached for a steel training rod from a nearby equipment rack. The metal bar was designed to withstand plasma strikes during combat practice. Veltar wrapped his clawed fingers around it and squeezed. The steel crumpled like paper in his grip. "This is what hegemony strength looks like," he announced to the room. He tossed the twisted metal at Marcus's feet. "Your people cannot even begin to match our physical capabilities. You are outmatched in every way that matters in warfare." Marcus stared at the destroyed training rod. He knew Veltar was right about the strength difference. Humans had no natural weapons, no enhanced senses, no special abilities that made them obvious warriors, but that had never stopped them before. "You talk about strength," Marcus said, "but you're in the same classes as me, learning the same things. If your species is so superior, why do you need academy training? Several alien cadets made sounds that Marcus had learned indicated surprise. No one challenged Veltar directly. His species ruled a quarter of the galaxy through military might. Their warriors were legendary for never losing a battle. Veltar's yellow eyes narrowed. Careful, human. Your ignorance is showing. My ignorance? Marcus stepped forward. You crushed a training rod, congratulations. Any construction mech can do that. But this academy doesn't train construction mechs. It trains military leaders. Strategy, tactics, leadership under pressure. If raw strength was all that mattered, why aren't the strongest beings in charge of the galaxy? The reptilian prince hissed, a sound that made several cadets step back. You dare question hegemony supremacy? I'm questioning whether strength makes you a better leader, Marcus replied. Because from where I stand, you look like someone who solves problems by breaking things. And sometimes problems can't be broken. Sometimes they have to be outthought. Commander Thexui moved closer but didn't intervene. The tree-like instructor seemed curious about how the confrontation would develop. You want to test problem-solving? Veltar asked. Very well. But not with words. Warriors settle disputes through combat. If you believe human capability matches hegemony strength, prove it. Marcus felt his heart racing. He had boxed in the military, trained in hand-to-hand combat, kept himself in good shape. But Veltar outweighed him by at least 100 pounds and had natural weapons. Fighting him would be suicide. But backing down now would confirm every insult thrown at humanity since they joined the coalition. It would prove that humans were weak, that they didn't belong among the galaxy's warriors, that they had been given academy positions out of pity rather than merit. Fine, Marcus said. But if I win, you never question human capability again. In front of anyone. Veltar's laugh was like grinding stones. When you lose, your species leaves this academy. Humans have no business training alongside real warriors. The other cadets formed a circle around them. Some looked excited at the prospect of violence. Others appeared concerned. A few seemed to be taking bets. Marcus noticed Zara pushing through the crowd, her face pale. Marcus, don't do this, she said quietly. He's trying to provoke you. He's succeeding, Marcus replied. He looked around the circle of alien faces. Some showed sympathy, others anticipation, most simple curiosity. They all wanted to see what humans were really made of. Very well, Commander Thexui announced. If both cadets consent to trial by combat, Academy regulations allow it. Standard sparring rules apply. No weapons, no lethal force. First blood ends the match. Veltar removed his outer uniform, revealing muscles that moved like steel cables under his scaled hide. Marcus did the same, suddenly very aware of how much smaller he looked by comparison. Last chance to withdraw, Veltar said. I have no wish to seriously injure you. Marcus raised his fists. I'm not withdrawing. The circle of cadets grew quiet. Commander Thexui raised one branch-like arm, then brought it down. Begin. Veltar moved like liquid lightning. One moment he stood across from Marcus. The next his clawed fist was whistling through the air where Marcus's head had been a split second before. The human cadet threw himself sideways, rolling across the training room floor as the reptilian prince's follow-up strike cracked the wall behind him. The alien cadets pressed closer to the makeshift fighting ring, their various forms of communication creating a buzzing undercurrent of excitement and anticipation. Marcus could see credits changing hands as bets were placed on how quickly the fight would end. Most seemed to think it would be over in seconds. Marcus scrambled to his feet, raising his guard just in time to deflect a sweeping blow that would have taken his head off. The impact sent shockwaves up his arms. It felt like blocking a sledgehammer with a stick. Veltar wasn't even breathing hard. Is this the famous human stubbornness? The reptilian prince asked, circling slowly. You absorb punishment and call it strength? Marcus didn't answer. He focused on staying mobile, keeping his distance, looking for any opportunity. He had studied Veltar's species during their xenobiology classes. The hegemony were built for direct confrontation, using overwhelming force to crush opponents quickly. They were strong, fast, and nearly indestructible. But they were also predictable. Veltar lunged again, his claws extending from his fingertips. Marcus ducked under the swipe and drove his fist into the alien's ribs. Pain shot through his knuckles as they connected with hide that felt like armored plating. Veltar barely seemed to notice the impact. A backhand caught Marcus across the chest, sending him flying into a training dummy. The impact knocked the wind from his lungs. Stars danced across his vision as he struggled to stand. Around the circle, he heard alien cadets making sounds of disappointment. The fight was going exactly as they had expected. "Stay down," Zara called from the crowd. "This isn't worth it." But Marcus pushed himself upright. His ribs ached and he tasted blood, but he wasn't finished. He had been in worse situations during his military service. Human soldiers didn't win fights by being tougher than their enemies. They won by being smarter, more persistent, and more willing to adapt. Veltar advanced again, his yellow eyes gleaming with confidence. "Your species fascinates me," he said conversationally as if they weren't in the middle of combat. "You continue fighting even when victory is impossible. Is this courage or simple stupidity?" "Maybe both," Marcus admitted. He wiped blood from his mouth and reset his stance. This time when Veltar attacked, Marcus was ready. Instead of trying to block or dodge completely, he moved with the blow, using the alien's momentum against him. He grabbed Veltar's extended arm and used it as leverage to swing around behind him, landing a series of quick strikes to the back of his neck. The hits barely registered, but Veltar spun around with a snarl of annoyance. For the first time, Marcus had managed to surprise him. "Interesting technique," the reptilian prince said, "but tricks will not save you." He changed his approach, no longer playing with his opponent. His attacks came faster now, forcing Marcus to give ground steadily. A clawed hand raked across his shoulder, drawing first blood. According to the rules, the fight should have ended there, but neither combatant stopped. Commander Thexui watched with growing interest as Marcus continued to fight despite the wound. The human was clearly outmatched, but something in his movements suggested he wasn't beaten yet. Veltar's overconfidence began to show. His attacks became wilder, more aggressive. He was used to opponents falling quickly to his overwhelming strength. Marcus's persistence was beginning to irritate him. "Why won't you submit?" Veltar demanded, landing another heavy blow that sent Marcus stumbling. "Your pride serves no purpose here." Marcus straightened slowly. His left arm hung at an odd angle, probably dislocated, and blood ran from multiple cuts, but his eyes remained focused and alert. "You want to know the difference between humans and other species?" Marcus asked, breathing heavily. "We don't know when to quit. Sometimes that's stupid. Sometimes it's what wins wars." He launched himself forward in a desperate attack, knowing he had only moments before his injuries overwhelmed him. His good fist connected with Veltar's solar plexus. The alien doubled over slightly, more from surprise than pain. But Marcus wasn't finished. He grabbed a piece of broken training equipment and swung it at Veltar's knee. The improvised weapon shattered on impact, but the alien stumbled. "Now you fight with tools?" Veltar asked, amusement in his voice. "How very human." "Whatever works," Marcus replied. He had managed to create some distance, but he was running out of options. His vision was starting to blur and his left arm was useless. Veltar looked barely winded. The alien cadets around the circle were murmuring among themselves, some expressing admiration for Marcus's refusal to surrender, others calling it pointless. Veltar gathered himself for a finishing strike. His muscles coiled like springs as he prepared to end the fight with overwhelming force. Marcus braced himself, knowing he couldn't dodge or block what was coming. But as the reptilian prince drew back his arm, his foot slipped on a piece of debris from the broken training equipment. For just a moment he was off balance, his perfect form disrupted. Marcus saw the opening and took it. He dove forward, not trying to strike, but wrapping his good arm around Veltar's leg and pulling with everything he had left. The alien prince toppled backward, crashing into a rack of training weapons with a sound like thunder. For a moment, both fighters lay still. Then Veltar rose slowly, his golden markings now pulsing with anger instead of confidence. A thin line of green blood ran from a cut on his forehead where he had struck the weapon rack. "Enough," he said quietly. His voice had changed, becoming deeper and more dangerous. "You want to see real hegemony strength? I will show you what happens to species that refuse to know their place." The playful tone was gone. Veltar's casual superiority had been replaced by genuine fury. Around the circle, alien cadets began to step back. Several looked concerned. This was no longer a sparring match between cadets. Commander Thexui moved forward, but before he could intervene, another voice cut through the tension. "Stop!" Everyone turned to see Zara stepping into the circle. The human medic looked small and fragile compared to the towering reptilian prince, but something in her posture commanded attention. "The rules state first blood ends the match," she said calmly. "Both fighters have drawn blood." "The contest is over." Veltar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. "Your friend is defeated." His blood flows while mine barely shows. There is no question of victory here. Then you have nothing to prove by continuing, Zara replied. Unless you're afraid that given more time, he might actually find a way to beat you. The reptilian prince's eyes narrowed dangerously.
Afraid? I fear nothing from your primitive species. Then why haven't you finished him yet?
Zara asked. He's half your size, wounded, using one arm. If hegemony warriors are truly superior, this should have been over in seconds. But here you are, 3 minutes in, and a primitive human is still standing. Veltar's claws extended fully. Several alien cadets made warning sounds. The tension in the room reached a breaking point. Perhaps, Zara continued, you need to face a human who isn't already injured to prove your point properly. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus tried to speak to tell her not to get involved, but his voice came out as a croak. Zara kept her eyes fixed on Veltar. You wish to take his place? The reptilian prince asked. I wish to invoke substitution rights under coalition martial law, Zara replied formally. A warrior's comrade may continue combat in their stead if they are unable to fight effectively. Commander Thexui's branches rustled in surprise. That law has not been invoked in over 3 centuries. But it still stands, Zara said. Unless the hegemony no longer respects coalition legal precedent? Veltar stared at her for a long moment. Around the circle, alien cadets whispered among themselves. No one had expected this development. Finally, the reptilian prince smiled coldly. Very well, human. If you wish to share your friend's fate, I will accommodate you. The training room fell completely silent as Zara stepped forward. Marcus tried to push himself up from where he lay against the wall, but his injuries kept him pinned in place. He watched helplessly as his fellow human cadet faced down the reptilian prince who had just demolished him. Zara, don't, Marcus managed to whisper. He's too strong. But Zara didn't acknowledge his words. She was studying Veltar with the same intense focus she brought to their tactical classes. Her eyes moved systematically across his form, cataloging every detail. The alien cadets around the circle began making sounds of disbelief. A few even laughed. Veltar himself seemed amused rather than threatened. Another brave human, he said mockingly. Tell me, do you plan to outlast me through sheer persistence as well? Your friend's strategy was admirable but ultimately futile. My strategy will be different, Zara replied calmly. She began removing her outer uniform, revealing a lean but athletic build underneath. Unlike Marcus, who moved like a soldier, Zara's movements had a fluid precision that suggested different training altogether. She stretched her neck and shoulders methodically, like someone preparing for a familiar routine. You are smaller than your friend, Veltar observed. Weaker, less experienced in combat. What makes you think you will fare better? Experience, Zara said simply. Commander Thexui stepped between them. Cadet Okonkwo, you understand the implications of invoking substitution rights? If you lose, both humans are considered defeated. Your species' reputation at this academy will suffer accordingly. Zara nodded. I understand the stakes. And if you win? Veltar asked with obvious skepticism. When I win, Zara corrected, you will acknowledge that humans belong at this academy, publicly, in front of all the cadets. The reptilian prince's golden markings pulsed brighter. Very well. But when you fall, both of you leave this institution. The coalition can find other ways to coddle your primitive species. Around the circle, alien cadets began placing new bets. The odds were even more heavily stacked against the humans now. Several species were known for their warrior traditions, but none gave small, weaponless beings much chance against a hegemony prince. Begin when ready, Commander Thexui announced. Stepping back, Veltar approached more cautiously this time. His fight with Marcus had been entertainment, a chance to demonstrate superiority. But something about Zara's confidence made him wary. He had learned not to completely underestimate humans in the past few minutes. Zara didn't move. She stood perfectly still, watching him approach. Her breathing remained steady and controlled. When he was 3 feet away, she finally spoke. Tell me something, she said conversationally. How many times has your species been defeated in single combat? Veltar paused, confused by the question. Never. The hegemony has never lost a warrior to inferior beings. That must make this moment historically significant then, Zara replied. Before he could respond, she moved. But instead of attacking directly, she circled to his left, staying just out of reach. Veltar turned to follow her movement, his claws extended and ready. You fight like prey, he said with disgust, running and hiding instead of facing me directly. I fight like someone who studied your species' anatomy for 3 months, Zara corrected. Your balance point is higher than most bipeds because of your tail. Your reach advantage comes from longer arms, but that makes your recovery time slower. Your scales provide excellent protection against cutting weapons, but offer limited cushioning against impact trauma. Veltar lunged at her, but she was already moving. Instead of dodging away, she stepped inside his reach, too close for his long arms to be effective. Her elbow struck his floating rib with surgical precision. The blow wouldn't have fazed Marcus, but Zara had targeted the one gap in his natural armor, where nerve clusters lay close to the surface. Veltar staggered, more from surprise than pain. Impossible. How did you know? Your species has been part of the coalition for 800 years, Zara said, continuing to circle. There are extensive medical files available to anyone with Academy access, including detailed anatomical studies. She struck again, this time targeting a pressure point near his shoulder. Veltar's left arm went momentarily numb. He spun around, swinging wildly, but she was already behind him. The alien cadets watched in fascination as the fight developed. This wasn't the brutal slugfest they had expected. Zara moved like a surgeon, each attack precisely targeted and devastatingly effective. She wasn't trying to overpower Veltar. She was dismantling him piece by piece. Stand still and fight. The reptilian prince roared in frustration. Why would I do that? Zara asked. You have every natural advantage. Strength, speed, natural weapons, armor. Fighting you directly would be stupid. She grabbed a training rod from the ground and spun it expertly between her fingers. But advantages can become disadvantages if you know how to exploit them. Veltar charged again, his fury overriding his tactical thinking. Zara waited until the last second, then dropped to one knee and drove the training rod upward into his solar plexus. The metal bent from the impact, but the blow lifted him off his feet. As he landed hard, gasping for breath, Zara was already moving. She vaulted over his prone form and landed near the weapon rack, grabbing a padded training baton. Your species relies on intimidation and overwhelming force, she explained, as if giving a lecture. When that doesn't work immediately, you become frustrated and make mistakes. Veltar climbed to his feet, his golden markings now flickering erratically. Green blood trickled from his mouth where he had bitten his tongue during the fall. You fight without honor, he snarled. I fight to win, Zara replied. Honor is a luxury for people who aren't fighting for their species' respect. She advanced with the training baton held in both hands. Veltar swung at her with desperate fury, but his movements had become wild and predictable. Zara ducked under his guard and struck his knee with the baton. The joint buckled and he went down on one leg. The thing about being naturally superior, Zara said, stepping back to avoid his retaliatory swipe, is that you never learn to adapt when things go wrong. You just try the same thing harder. Around the circle, alien cadets were making sounds of amazement. Several species were known for their tactical thinking, but none had seen anyone dissect a hegemony warrior so methodically. Commander Thexui watched with particular interest, taking notes on a small recording device. Veltar struggled to stand, favoring his injured knee. His breathing was labored and his earlier confidence had evaporated completely. What are you? He demanded. I told you. I'm a medic, Zara replied. Do you know what medics study? Anatomy, physiology, pressure points, nerve clusters, how bodies work, and more importantly, how they stop working. She moved closer, the training baton held ready. I also served with Earth's Special Forces for 6 years before coming here. We specialized in asymmetric warfare, taking down opponents who were bigger, stronger, and better equipped than we were. Veltar made one final desperate lunge, putting everything he had into a killing blow with his claws fully extended, but Zara had been expecting it. She stepped aside at the last moment and brought the training baton down across the back of his neck, targeting the nerve cluster that controlled his motor functions. The reptilian prince collapsed face first onto the training room floor. His body convulsed once, then went still. Green blood began pooling beneath him from several small wounds. The training room erupted in shocked sounds from a dozen different species. Several alien cadets rushed forward to check on Veltar, while others stared at Zara in disbelief. Is he dead? Someone asked in a trembling voice. Zara knelt beside the fallen alien and checked his pulse. No. Unconscious. He'll wake up in a few minutes with a massive headache and some bruised pride. She stood and looked around the circle of alien faces. Any questions about human capability? Commander Thexui approached slowly, his branch-like limbs rustling with what might have been approval. That was the most educational combat demonstration I have witnessed in decades, he said quietly. Marcus managed to pull himself upright against the wall. His injuries hurt, but seeing Zara standing victorious over the supposedly invincible hegemony prince made the pain seem insignificant. How did you know all that? He asked weakly. Zara helped him to his feet. I told you. I studied everyone in our class. You never know when information about anatomy might save your life. Around them, alien cadets were helping Veltar to a sitting position. The reptilian prince looked dazed and confused, but he was breathing normally. His golden markings had faded to a dull yellow. The substitution has been completed successfully, Commander Thexui announced formally. Under coalition law, the human victory stands. Veltar looked up at Zara with something that might have been respect mixed with confusion. I don't understand, he said slowly. My species has never been defeated in single combat. How did you win? Zara extended her hand to help him stand. Because humans don't fight the way you expect. We don't try to outmuscle our opponents. We find weaknesses, exploit advantages, and adapt when our plans don't work. The reptilian prince accepted her help, though he winced as he put weight on his injured knee. You studied my weaknesses in advance? I study everyone's weaknesses, Zara replied matter-of-factly. It's called preparation. Most humans do it instinctively. As Veltar stood, swaying slightly, the implications the Academy Medical Bay hummed with quiet efficiency as automated healing units worked on both human cadets. Marcus lay on one bed while medical scanners repaired his dislocated shoulder and sealed his cuts. Zara sat on another bed, though her injuries were minor compared to his. The medical AI had pronounced her fit for duty after treating a few scrapes and bruises. Word of the fight had spread through the academy like wildfire. Every few minutes, another cadet or instructor would find an excuse to walk past the medical bay windows, stealing glances at the humans who had accomplished the impossible. I still can't believe you did that, Marcus said, flexing his newly healed arm. A hegemony prince. They're supposed to be unbeatable. Zara shrugged. Everyone's beatable if you understand their weaknesses. The hegemony just haven't had anyone study them closely enough before. But you did. I studied everyone in our class, she repeated. Know your environment, know your potential opponents, know your own capabilities. Basic tactical thinking, Marcus shook his head in amazement. Is that what they taught you in special forces? How to take down aliens twice your size. They taught me how to survive when everything was stacked against me, Zara replied. The alien part was improvisation. The medical bay doors hissed open and Commander Thexui entered. The tree-like instructor's bark skin showed signs of agitation, with several small branches trembling slightly. Cadets, he said formally, word of today's events has reached the Academy Council. They wish to speak with both of you. Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. Are we in trouble? For fighting? Unknown, Thexui replied. The Council is intrigued by what occurred. No hegemony warrior has been defeated in single combat for over 2,000 years. The implications are significant. He paused, studying both humans with his compound eyes. Tell me, Cadet Okonkwo, did you plan this confrontation in advance? No, sir, Zara said immediately. I intervened because my teammate was in danger and our species' reputation was at stake. Everything else was improvisation. Remarkable, Thexui murmured. Your species continues to surprise us. Come, the council is waiting. They followed the instructor through corridors filled with curious stares. News of the fight had clearly spread beyond their immediate class. Cadets from other years and even some faculty members watched them pass with expressions ranging from amazement to concern. The Academy Council chamber was a vast, circular room with seating for representatives from each member species of the Galactic Coalition. Today, only about half the seats were occupied, but those present included some of the most influential military minds in the galaxy. At the center of the room stood Veltar. The reptilian prince looked uncomfortable but determined. His golden markings had returned to their normal brightness. Though he still favored his injured knee slightly, Cadets Chen and Okonkwo, announced Admiral Keshai, the Zinthari who served as Academy Commandant. Her forearms gestured for them to approach. Please step forward. Marcus and Zara walked to the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of multiple alien gazes upon them. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Prince Veltar has filed a formal report regarding today's training incident. Admiral Kesahai continued. He has requested to address this council personally. The reptilian prince stepped forward, his posture rigid with military bearing. Honored council members, he began, I stand before you today humbled and enlightened. Several council members made sounds of surprise. Hegemony royalty was not known for humility. For my entire life I have believed that strength determines worth in combat. Veltar continued. That superior physical capabilities naturally lead to superior tactical outcomes. Today I learned the dangerous limitations of that thinking. He turned to face the two humans. Cadet Chen fought with courage that honored his species, refusing to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. But it was Cadet Okonkwo who taught me the true lesson. Veltar's voice grew stronger as he spoke. She defeated me not through superior strength or natural advantages, but through superior preparation, tactical thinking, and adaptability. She studied her opponent, identified weaknesses, and exploited them with precision I have never encountered. Admiral Kesai leaned forward in her seat. Prince Veltar, you are saying that humans demonstrated tactical superiority over hegemony doctrine? I am saying that humans represent a form of warfare my people have never encountered, he replied. They do not fight as we expect. They do not rely on natural advantages. Instead, they analyze, adapt, and overcome through intelligence and determination. A council member from the ancient Etherian collective spoke next, his translated voice carrying notes of curiosity. This presents interesting implications for coalition military doctrine. If humans can defeat hegemony forces through asymmetric tactics, it changes our understanding of combat effectiveness across species, finished Admiral Kesai. Cadet Okonkwo, explain your tactical thinking during the engagement. Zara stepped forward, her composure remarkably steady given the circumstances. I assessed my opponent's natural advantages and fighting style, then developed a strategy to neutralize those advantages while exploiting his weaknesses. Specifically, Prince Veltar relies on intimidation and overwhelming force. When those tactics fail quickly, hegemony warriors become frustrated and begin making tactical errors. I used his own aggression against him while targeting anatomical vulnerabilities I had identified through prior study. A ripple of interested sounds passed through the council. Several members were taking notes. You studied hegemony anatomy in advance? Asked a Vorthak representative. I study all species represented at this academy, Zara replied. Understanding potential allies and opponents is basic military intelligence gathering. Commander Thexui spoke from his position near the chamber wall. Council members, I believe what we witnessed today represents a new form of tactical thinking. Humans approach combat differently than any species we have encountered. Explain, Admiral Kesahai commanded. Most species fight according to their natural strengths, Thexui said. The hegemony uses overwhelming physical force. The Etherians employ energy manipulation. The Zenthari coordinate through multiple appendages. Each species has developed tactics that maximize their biological advantages. He paused, letting his words sink in. Humans have no significant natural advantages for combat. No enhanced strength, speed, or special abilities. Instead, they have developed tactical flexibility as their primary survival trait. They adapt their fighting style to each situation and opponent. Marcus found himself speaking before he realized it. That's how we survived on Earth. We weren't the strongest predators or the fastest prey. We learned to use tools, coordinate in groups, and outthink our opponents. And now you apply those same principles to interspecies combat, mused the Etherian representative. Fascinating. Prince Veltar stepped forward again. Council members, I formally request that human tactical doctrine be studied and integrated into Academy curriculum. My defeat today revealed significant gaps in current military thinking. The chamber erupted in surprised sounds. A hegemony prince was recommending that his own people learn from the species he had dismissed as primitive just hours before. Admiral Kesahai raised one hand for silence. This is an unprecedented situation. We must consider the broader implications carefully. She looked directly at Marcus and Zara. Cadets, do you believe human tactical methods can be taught effectively to other species? Some aspects, yes, Zara replied thoughtfully. The analytical approach, the emphasis on preparation and adaptability, but much of human tactics rely on thinking like prey animals rather than predators. That might be difficult for naturally dominant species to master. Prince Veltar, the Admiral continued, you are prepared to recommend official study of human combat doctrine? I am, he said firmly. My people need to understand that strength alone is not sufficient for military superiority. Today's demonstration proved that intelligence and adaptability can overcome raw power. The council members began murmuring among themselves in dozens of languages. The translation devices couldn't keep up with all the overlapping conversations. Finally, Admiral Kesshai called for order. The implications of today's events extend far beyond a simple training exercise. If human tactical methods prove as effective as this demonstration suggests, it could reshape coalition military doctrine. She stood, her forearms spread in a gesture of formal address. This council hereby authorizes a comprehensive study of human combat tactics, to be conducted jointly by Academy faculty and Earth military representatives. Cadets Chen and Okonkwo will serve as primary consultants for this study. Marcus felt his knees go weak with relief. Instead of being expelled from the Academy, they were being asked to help redesign its curriculum. Additionally, the Admiral continued, all previous restrictions on human advancement through Academy ranks are hereby removed. This species has proven their tactical value beyond question. Around the chamber, alien representatives were nodding agreement. Even species that had shown little interest in humans before seemed impressed by what they had witnessed. As the formal session concluded and council members began filing out, Prince Veltar approached the two humans. His demeanor had changed. 6 months later, the same training room buzzed with activity as cadets from a dozen species worked through tactical scenarios. But the atmosphere had changed completely from that day when Marcus threw his first punch and Zara ended the fight with blood on the floor. Marcus stood at the front of the room, pointing to a holographic display showing orbital defense patterns. Around him, alien cadets took notes with the same intensity they had once reserved for studying ancient battle strategies from their own species. The key principle of human asymmetric warfare, Marcus explained, is turning your weaknesses into advantages. When you can't match enemy firepower, you don't try to. You make firepower irrelevant by changing the terms of engagement. A young hegemony cadet raised her clawed hand. But, Commander Chen, how do you overcome the psychological disadvantage of knowing you are physically inferior to your opponent? Marcus smiled at being called Commander. His promotion had come through just last week, along with his assignment as the Academy's first instructor of human tactical doctrine. You stop thinking of it as inferiority and start thinking of it as tactical flexibility. Physical limitations force you to be creative. Across the room, Zara was leading another group through hand-to-hand combat techniques, adapted for different alien physiologies. A massive Zenthari was learning how to use his forearms to grapple opponents effectively, while an ethereal floating being practiced using energy manipulation for precise pressure point strikes. Remember, Zara called out, you're not trying to copy human techniques exactly. You're adapting human principles to your own capabilities. Prince Veltar approached Marcus's group, moving with a noticeable limp that had never fully healed from their fight. But there was no resentment in his manner. If anything, he had become one of the most enthusiastic students of human tactics. Commander, he said formally, the Academy Council has approved my request to spend next term studying with Earth Special Forces. I want to understand human tactical thinking from its origins. Outstanding, Marcus replied. General Rodriguez will be expecting you at Fort Benning. Fair warning, though. Earth training is designed to push humans to their limits. It might be even harder for someone with your natural advantages. Veltar's golden markings pulsed with what Marcus had learned indicated amusement. I look forward to the challenge. I have much to learn about fighting like prey. The comment would have been insulting 6 months ago. Now it was simply an acknowledgement of tactical philosophy. The hegemony prince had become one of the most effective students of human warfare principles, precisely because his natural instincts were so different from human ones. Commander Thexui entered the training room, his bark-like skin rustling with satisfaction. The tree-like instructor had been promoted to head of the new Department of Asymmetric Warfare Studies, a position created specifically to study and teach human tactical methods. Commanders Chen and Okonkwo, he announced, Admiral Kesshai wishes to see you in her office immediately. Marcus and Zara exchanged glances. Summons from the Academy Commandant were never routine, though they had learned to expect the unexpected since their integration into the Academy's command structure. They found Admiral Kesahai in her office overlooking the Academy's main training complex. Through the transparent walls, they could see cadets from multiple species practicing formations that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Hegemony warriors were learning stealth techniques from Vorthak specialists. Ancient Etherian collectives were studying small unit tactics with young human instructors. "Commanders," the Admiral said without preamble, "we have received a request from the Coalition Defense Council. They want human tactical advisors for the Outer Rim crisis." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. The Outer Rim crisis was the Coalition's first major military challenge since humanity had joined. A species called the Devourers had appeared from dark space, systematically destroying entire star systems with technology that seemed immune to conventional Coalition tactics. "What kind of advisory role?" Zara asked. "Full strategic consultation," Admiral Kesahai replied. "The Defense Council has reviewed the tactical innovations developed here at the Academy. They believe human asymmetric warfare principles might be effective against an enemy that has proven immune to traditional Coalition military doctrine." She activated a holographic display showing the current battle lines. Red markers indicated Devourer incursions, while blue showed Coalition defensive positions. The red markers were advancing steadily. "Every species in the Coalition has committed their finest warriors and most advanced technology," the Admiral continued. "The Hegemony sends their most elite forces. The Etherian Collective deploys energy weapons that can crack moons. The Zenthari coordinate fleets with perfect precision. None of it has stopped the Devourer advance." Marcus studied the tactical display. "What makes them so effective?" "They adapt to every strategy we employ," Admiral Kesahai said grimly. "When we use overwhelming force, they disperse and attack our supply lines. When we use advanced technology, they somehow turn it against us. When we coordinate large fleets, they strike with small, fast units at our weakest points." Zara leaned forward, her tactical mind already working. "They fight like humans." "Exactly," the Admiral confirmed. "Which is why the Defense Council believes humans might be the only ones who can counter their tactics effectively." The implications were staggering. After millennia of being considered the galaxy's junior partner, humanity was being asked to lead the Coalition's response to its greatest threat. "When do we leave?" Marcus asked. "Tomorrow," Admiral Kesahai replied, "but understand the stakes. If human tactical doctrine fails against the Devourers, the Coalition may fall. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds are counting on the principles you developed in this Academy." That evening, Marcus and Zara stood on one of the Academy's observation decks, watching ships come and go from the massive space station. Cadets from their classes had already begun graduating and receiving assignments to Coalition fleets throughout the galaxy. Human tactical thinking was spreading across the military, one officer at a time. "Are you ready for this?" Marcus asked. "As ready as anyone can be," Zara replied. "We've proven that human tactics work against individual opponents in small unit scenarios. Now we get to find out if they scale up to strategic warfare." "No pressure," Marcus said with dark humor. "Actually, there is pressure," Zara corrected. "But that's what humans do best, isn't it? Perform under pressure, adapt when things go wrong, find ways to win when everyone expects us to lose." Prince Veltar approached them across the observation deck. His formal Hegemony military uniform had been modified to include human tactical insignia, marking him as a graduate of their asymmetric warfare program. "My friends," he said, using the human term he had adopted, "I heard about your assignment to the Outer Rim. I have requested permission to accompany you as a tactical liaison." "The Hegemony is willing to send a prince to serve under human command?" Marcus asked, surprised. "The Hegemony recognizes that this crisis requires new thinking," Veltar replied, "and I have learned more about warfare from humans than from a lifetime of traditional Hegemony training." He looked out at the stars beyond the station's hull. "Besides, if human tactics fail, my species' traditional methods have already proven inadequate. We have nothing to lose and everything to gain." Other figures emerged from the shadows of the observation deck. Etherian representatives floated silently nearby, their energy forms pulsing with subdued light. A group of Zenthari officers stood in perfect coordination, their forearms moving in unconscious synchronization. Representatives from a dozen other species had come to see them off. Word of tomorrow's mission has spread, Commander Thexui said, joining the group. Many of our students have requested permission to serve under human command. Marcus looked around at the assembled alien officers, many of whom had been skeptical or openly hostile to human presence just months before. Now they were volunteering to follow human tactical leadership into the Coalition's greatest crisis. I never expected this, he said quietly. None of us did. Zara agreed. But maybe that's the point. Humans excel at dealing with the unexpected. Admiral Keshai's voice echoed across the observation deck from the communication system. All personnel report to stations. Incoming priority transmission from Coalition Defense Council. The holographic display activated, showing a grim-faced Zenthari admiral transmitting from the front lines. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship showed signs of recent battle damage. Academy Command, the admiral said urgently. Devourer forces have broken through our defensive lines in the Kepler sector. They are advancing toward core Coalition worlds. Human tactical advisors are needed immediately. The transmission cut out, leaving the observation deck in tense silence. Well, Marcus said, breaking the quiet. Looks like we're not waiting until tomorrow. Within hours, a hastily assembled fleet of Coalition ships was departing the Academy station. At the center of the formation flew a converted cruiser that had been designated as the new Asymmetric Warfare Command Vessel. Its crew included humans, aliens who had trained under human doctrine, and representatives from every major Coalition species. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace,